Welcome. We are joining today for the 2023 IARPIC post-field season meeting. My name is Sarah Tucker, and I'm a Knauss Fellow from the Arctic Research Program at the Global Ocean Monitoring Observing Program at NOAA. I'm also a co-lead for the Field Operations Community of Practice with IARPIC, and I'm joining this call from the ancestral home of the Anacostia and Piscataway peoples here in Washington, D.C. We are very excited to be hosting this year's meeting and recapping the 2023 Arctic Research Field Season, where we will have presentations from Arctic going and Alaska researchers, as well as observers, to share some of their early findings, challenges encountered, and important community outreach and local engagement activities as well. So many thanks to our speakers who have volunteered to share their work with us today. I also want to acknowledge my collaborators within the Field Operations Community of Practice, including Renee Crane and David Allen and Katie Smith, and our co-sponsors from the Marine Ecosystems and Sea Ice Community of Practices within IARPIC, as well as the Data Management and Collaboration team. So it's a big collaborative effort, both from IARPIC teams, but really from our presenters coming in and being able to share their research and observations with us. So thank you to this community for being here today. Thank you all for showing up and joining this meeting. Just a few reminders. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on our IARPIC event page and on our YouTube channel by next week. As always, we ask that folks stay on mute unless they are speaking or asking questions. You all probably know where the mute unmute function is now, but it's down in this bottom left corner. For those who are joining by phone, you can mute or unmute by using *6. We also want to encourage people to use the chat function. If folks want to go ahead and put their names in the chat where they're calling in from and any affiliation, we encourage that now. It'd be great to see who's out there and make this a little bit more of an interactive meeting. And finally, for our discussion periods of time, we ask that if you have a question or a comment, that you use the raise hand function, and that's down in the reactions area of the toolbar. So I also want to mention that this meeting falls within IARPIC's Code of Conduct. I will drop that link in the chat. We want to do everything to create a safe, productive, inclusive, and welcoming meeting. So if at any time there's something that's making you uncomfortable, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or our other leaders on the call. And we encourage all meeting participants to enter this meeting with an open mind and be respectful of diverse perspectives and knowledge systems on the call. So it's a little bit of housekeeping for us, and we just want to really jump into it. So I'm going to turn it over to, well, first I'm going to share some great social media links for IARPIC, if you guys aren't familiar with these yet. And I want to turn it over to Renee Crane, another co-lead for the Field Operations Community of Practice.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome everyone to the 2023 post-field season meeting. I'm Renee Crane. I'm a program manager at the Arctic Sciences section at the National Science Foundation. The Field Operations Community of Practice strives to increase collaboration and communication about field campaigns and related efforts to improve safety and effective field work across all the federal agencies. One of our group's deliverables is information about planned research cruises. Each field season, the vessel matrix is featured on the IARPIC website. It goes back to 2016. In 2023, we added a spreadsheet of mooring locations. So this is a clearinghouse where people can go for more information about planned research cruises and find contact information for who's leading those cruises and other relevant information. You can go to the next slide. This is our second year of holding meetings before and after the main field season for marine research in the Arctic. The pre-field season meeting highlights planned research cruises and their goals. And the post-field season meeting brings people together after the field season to share immediate observations and experiences. The purpose of our meeting is to increase communication among researchers and develop information that might be useful to coastal communities as well and bring things back in urgent time versus sort of a academic publication timeline. We want to also demonstrate the good practice for researchers of bringing back results to the community after cruises happen and doing things in a variety of different ways that may be useful to different user groups as well. So today's meeting will focus on unique observations. Oh, sorry, you can go ahead to the next slide. Yeah, today's meeting will focus on unique observations and significant findings, successes or challenges encountered during the research cruises, data for sharing and collaboration as well. The idea for the meeting is that we'll have 3 rounds of talks followed by questions and answers where people can go into more detail. We are hoping that this opportunity gives us a chance to synthesize information more across geographic regions, across research disciplines by seeing the entire array of cruises. And we don't have every speaker who had a cruise, we don't have every researcher who had a cruise this summer speaking with us today, but this does give us a sense of the geography covered and the topics covered. And the matrix has more detailed information about all the research projects. We provide a slide template. The concept there is to focus the discussion on the topics or themes that we want to cover and reduce the time and effort for researchers to develop their talking points. We really just want to get people here, get focused, start the conversation, and not spend a lot of time on making everything as pretty as it possibly could be. We really want to get the discussion. So thank you to all of our presenters and discussants today. I'm going to turn it over to Dave to go over in more detail the presentation order. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is David Allen, and I'm a program manager at NOAA's Arctic Research Program and co-lead of the Field Operations Working Group. I'm joining this call from the ancestral home of the Anacostan and Piscataway peoples here in Washington, D.C. We're going to kick off the event here with for our speakers with the first set of presentations today. I would like to remind our presenters that we'll have about 5 minutes to provide their remarks. And I'll put a 1 minute signal into the chat when it's time to wrap up. At the end of the presentations, we'll have approximately 5 minutes for questions, and then we'll move on to the next set of presentations. At the end of all the presentations, we'll have approximately 10 minutes for discussion. So if we don't get to your questions in the short Q&A after each group of presentations, please write your questions down. It's very easy to forget them. And hopefully we'll be able to get to them at the last bit. With that, I'd like to turn to our first set of talks, and I will go ahead and let Sam Candio take the floor. He'll be speaking from Seascape Alaska, the Gulf of Alaska Exploration Research Cruise. Sam, please take it away.
All right. Can you hear me? Am I coming through okay?
Yes,
Perfectly.
we can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. I figured. Cool. My name's Sam Candio, and I'm an expedition coordinator for NOAA Ocean Exploration. And I managed our series of expeditions in the Gulf of Alaska and the Aleutians this summer. So it's not directly Arctic, but hopefully there's some good stuff and some lessons learned that can be applied kind of throughout Alaska in general and to the field at large. So our expedition series consisted of 6 expeditions, 2 of which were ROV enabled. So we had a remotely operated vehicle. We were able to further characterize regions. The other 3 or 4 were focused more on acoustic mapping and collecting that baseline information. Additionally, something that I didn't put on here is we also funded a couple days on the Kilomoana to survey a large region over the Patton Seamount. So that added to the amount that we were able to do. You can go to the next slide, please. So with our organization, we're focused on deep waters. So for mapping, we generally focus in waters deeper than 200 meters. And for ROV operations, deeper than 250 meters. And throughout, we have just a couple highlights I wanted to go over. I definitely do not have enough time to talk about all of it. But I also will be at the Alaska Marine Science Symposium presenting more on the totality of these expeditions. So anybody that's there, feel free to stop by that talk and then catch me at any time to talk more about it. But some of the highlights I just wanted to go over quickly were with acoustic mapping, we were able to address over 285,000 square kilometers of seafloor, which is a number that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I looked it up and it's about the size of Michigan. So I think that kind of helps get a kind of an idea of the size of the area that we were able to address while we were out there. Throughout that, we identified numerous gas seeps. In the top left image, you can kind of see some bubbles emanating. That was a larger gas seep field that we were able to explore with the ROV and saw an enormous area of tube worms and this huge chemosynthetic community that was really exciting. We also found a seamount that was 700 meters taller than previously thought. So that was from the satellite altimetry versus what we were able to collect. And that got a little bit of media attention. As far as the ROV exploration highlights, we were able to complete 27 dives throughout the 2 ROV expeditions. Most of those were done in the Gulf of Alaska. I think we had about 6 in the Aleutian chain. And some of the exciting things that we saw during that were we found a number of potentially new species to science, a lot of different invertebrates, and with that also range extensions for coral, sponges, and sea star species. We had 2 separate observations of deep sea octopus nurseries where we're actually able to see the octopus brooding over the eggs. In the bottom left picture, you can see a mother octopus attached to a rock brooding eggs. We saw 2 in the Noyes Canyon region, kind of in the southeast of the Gulf of Alaska. And then we ended up diving on an area kind of closer to the Aleutian Trench where we saw upwards of 20 individuals all brooding. So it seems like a very interesting nursing ground. And I know that we have scientists that are already looking at writing and publishing papers on that, which we love to hear. I mentioned that the tube worm field that you can see off kind of in that middle image. Also kind of, we weren't anticipating doing this, but due to weather, we did multiple dives in the Alexander Archipelago. And one of the major benefits that we got from this were we were able to evaluate a distribution model of primnoids that was published by Rupert et al. In 2017 and see that that we were seeing these giant fields of primnoids. We also saw some shoreline deposits on seamounts within the Kodiak Bowie chain, which was exciting. Next slide, please. The biggest challenges that we had were staffing, and that's kind of across the industry, and weather. So you can see that image of the Gulf of Alaska kind of exploding, and that's what pushed us into the Alexander Archipelago. Some of the biggest successes were we were able to quickly pivot in areas. I think we only dove on 3 sites that we initially thought we were going to, but we were able to gather input from the community and pivot quickly. We also had a large amount of public engagement, and we're able to do a number of community outreach events, including live interactions with some of the programs listed there, as well as ship tours, and we co-hosted the first Seward Marine Symposium. And I think I've run out of time. 5 minutes goes really quickly. But on the next slide, just really quickly, you can see some of the data sharing collaborations. If you just type in NOAA Ocean Exploration Data Atlas, it should pull you to get all of the data that you need from this. And I put a link in there for a webinar series that we did over the Seascape Alaska in general. That has a lot of good information there. But with that, thank you.
Awesome, Sam. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the presentation, and I'm sorry that the time is so short. It's always unfortunately short, but really appreciate you keeping the time and providing such a thoughtful presentation. With that, I'll turn to Nicole Charrier from the Alaska Fisheries Science Center for the Eastern and Northern Bering Sea Bottom Trawl Surveys. Please, go ahead.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Hello.
My name is Nicole, and I'm a fisheries biologist in the ground fish assessment program at the Alaska Fisheries Science Center in Seattle. And I'm part of the Bering Sea group that conducts the Eastern and Northern Bering Sea surveys for that region. And next slide. And just a little bit about our surveys. The Eastern Bering Sea has been conducted as an annual and standardized survey since 1982. And then over time, there was interest in exploring fisheries and climate trends in this transitional region between the Eastern Bering Sea and the Chukchi. And so we expanded our survey area into the Northern Bering Sea in 2010, and we've continued monitoring that region across certain years. And so for the survey design overall, both of these surveys, they're set up in a systematic grid design. And each of those squares of that grid is about 20 to 20 nautical miles. And there's quite a lot of stations in those particular areas. So we have about 376 fixed stations in the Eastern Bering Sea and then 144 in the northern. And our operations, they're performed on 2 contracted commercial vessels. And then we used the 83112 Eastern Bottom Trawl, and that's named for its 83-foot head rope and the 112-foot rope. And next slide, please. And so on these 2 surveys, we collect a variety of data, and highlights include our bottom temperature data, and that's what the animation to the left is displaying. And we also track surface temperature and depth and salinity and light data from both this trawl mounted and onboard light meters. And then our usual various fish lengths, weights, otoliths for aging purposes, stomach collections for dietary data. And we also executed just under 40 different scientific projects from internal and external investigators. And next slide, please. And so for some of our findings, you can see a subset of our mean bottom temperatures in the figure on the left, and then mean surface and bottom temperatures for each of these surveys, different time series on the upper right. And for 2023, both the Eastern Bering Sea and Northern Bering Sea surveys, they had both mean surface and bottom temperatures that were kind of near or just slightly below their time series averages. And next slide, please. So in terms of sort of surveys by the numbers, the biomass estimates for Eastern Bering Sea and Northern Bering Sea, they had decreased from last year. And overall for our survey collections, we had thousands and thousands of survey lengths, otoliths, and stomachs that were collected. You know, I'm not going to read them all, but you can just see that it's a significant amount of data that we collected. And of those particular collections, we identified 129 species of fish and 265 invertebrate taxa as well. And next slide. And this is just an example of our biomass population and species distribution data that our surveys collect. This particular species is walleye pollock, which is one of the really important commercial species for us in this region. And the overall biomass populations were just below the survey means for both of the Eastern Bering Sea and Northern Bering Sea surveys. And in the figure on the right, you can just see the overall changes in pollock distribution in this particular highlight is the Northern Bering Sea, with the largest concentration sort of off of the deeper waters in St. Matthews Island. And next slide, please. Oh, you can skip some of these, just for in the interest of time, I think. I can always go back if there's questions. And one more. Excellent. And so just to keep it short, you can scan any of these QR codes and learn about our data products. You can view our historical catch data in FOSS, which is our fisheries one-stop shop. You can map our survey catch data and make data requests as well. We also value and work cooperatively with various Alaska Native communities, and we send annual reports to various tribal offices in the Bering Strait region within 60 days after these surveys. And we'll also have our 2023 tech memo coming out hopefully earlier this year, and you can read the official survey results from that too. And that's going to be it.
Well done. And thank you so much, Nicole. With that, I will turn to Zach Oyafuso for the bottom trawl for the Gulf of Alaska, please.
Hi, thanks. So I'm Zach. I am also a research fish biologist at the Alaska Fisheries Science Center in the ground fish Assessment program, I'm in the Aleutian Island Gulf of Alaska survey team, and I will be giving a brief overview on our ongoing GOA, or Gulf of Alaska bottom trawl surveys. Our last one was just completed last summer. So next slide, please. So our survey design, so the survey is conducted every odd year. This 1991 number is a typo. It's every odd year since 2001. Prior to 2001, the survey was conducted every 3 years. And then prior to 1991, we do have survey data, but due to inconsistencies with how the survey was conducted, we generally don't use those data. Design is a stratified random design with 54 to 59 strata defined by depth, management area, and geographic type. Our trials are 15 minutes, and they're conducted using a poly northeastern trawl. A picture of that is that bottom right photo there. You're looking into the opening of the trawl. We're fortunate to have 2 chartered fishing vessels that conduct our surveys. On the left is I have it there. The left is the Alaska Provider, and the right, or the center photo, is the Ocean Explorer. There are 6 scientists that go on board these surveys for a multitude of legs, and then 6 crew also on board. What else? We usually target 520 to 550 stations for this particular survey. I think our this past survey targeted around 530 stations. Cool. Yeah. Next slide, please. The objective of our survey is to monitor the trends and distributions and the abundance of various groundfish and crab taxa. We collect data on weight and numerical abundance. We also collect lengths for size composition. We also collect otoliths to calculate age compositions as well. And similar to the Bering Sea surveys, we also collect oceanographic data, bottom depth, temperatures. We deploy a CTD. We use light meters and acoustics on board as well. We also have a bunch of extraneous or extracurricular special projects that we execute every year, and this it's pretty varied. This past year, we executed 22 requested projects. And they can vary from specimen collections for various projects, observer trainings. We had a cod tagging project this year, and so it's a whole lot of stuff that gets done on deck. Next slide, please. Sort of early findings here. So you can see here the general distributions of 2 of our major groundfish, Pacific cod on top, and then pollock at the bottom. They're generally distributed sort of in the western and central Gulf of Alaska. And then on the left side, we have trends in total biomass over the time series, as sort of an example here. The bottom left graph is the trends with pollock. You can see pollock showing quite a jump in the total biomass this year compared to the last time we did the survey in 2021. Pacific cod on the top left, towards the mid 2010s experienced a decline, and ever since has been slowly returning back to those at least long-term average levels. Next slide, please. So this is a link for all of our it gives sort of a nice summary of all the different types of surveys that we conduct here at the Alaska Fisheries Science Center. We usually give out a tech memo summarizing the survey results that are published either the year or a couple of years after the survey ends. Our survey data products, so these are our estimated total abundance, biomass, length, and age composition data. are usually available to stock assessment scientists pretty quickly. So we end the survey, let's say in August. By September and October, our data are finalized and ready for the assessment process. And Nicole brought this up in her talk, but we do have the Fisheries One-Stop Shop FOSS. That's our sort of public online portal to get catch and effort data at the hull level that you can very easily access. And that's my time. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach, so much. Really appreciate the presentation. And I look forward to circling back and asking some questions that both you and Nicole raised or motivated. With that, I'd like to turn to Gay Sheffield for an update from the Bering Strait region. Gay, take it away, please. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I don't have a slideshow, so I'm just going to go with the orders that were given. So on the email. So first off, I am Gay Sheffield. I work for UAF, University of Alaska Fairbanks, Alaska Sea Grant. I am a public servant of the Bering Strait region. So I serve all peoples of the Bering Strait region, which is the homeland and waters of the Inupiaq, St. Lawrence Island Yupik, and Central Yupik peoples. On the email, 1, first impressions of the marine environment. We had some of the worst salmon runs ever that our CDQ group has ever seen and Subsistence has ever seen. We have lost our chums and pinks, and this has been transboundary over, it carried over into the Chukotka side as well, from what we can glean from translating news articles over there. It was a cold and rainy summer. It was a late fall. The ice did not arrive into the strait until mid-December. It is weak. It is mid-January. The ice is weak, and we just had a storm event that the North Slope Borough is enjoying right now, or hoping to finish up. It's quite strong. We have had EVU events. We have open water in the southern Chukchi Sea. We have ice smushed up against this shore on the southern northern Seward Peninsula. Our bird populations, best we can tell you, because there is no surveillance, proper surveillance, is that they were few for the most part. And note that in late December and early to mid-January, we still have seabirds occupying open water in the Bering Strait itself. So very much northward availability for some of our seabirds and ostensibly other animals. We did have low marine mammal strandings, low reports of dead seabirds. That was interesting and a bit of a break. We did have shortly some notification, thank you to Sikuliaq, that we were having a HAB event as Sikuliaq passed southbound from the Chukchi Sea to the southern Bering Sea. In the strait with their IFCB, they did pick up, at least for 3 days, we had data, or 2 days, we had data that said we were in danger, but nothing really after that except nearshore local efforts to sample. Number 2, challenges and successes. I would say I'll start with the success. The success is the harmful algal bloom regional communications and the academic and research side of the house as far as integrating into the regional hub of NOME and working with several regional entities. So that would be like Northwest Fisheries Science Center, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and others, auguring right in and working with this office, Sea Grant, working with the Norton Sound Health Corporation, working with our CDQ. So, and then letting us take us being the regional hub and networking out. And that has, of course, that's what we do anyway, every day. So that has been very successful. 2 challenges that come to mind. One is we now have multiple issues going on in the strait that are needed coordination between the managing agencies and the research agencies that for the marine resources in the Bering Strait region. That would include Fish and Wildlife, NOAA and ADF&G. It'd be nice to see that collaboration attacking bigger issues with the marine environment. And then the other challenge would be public service and education, 2 regions, 2 coastal communities. And we'd like to see basic surveillance done for disease and harmful algal blooms. So number 3, what are the areas for collaboration? 1 minute. Okay. Food safety, food security, all aspects of the marine environment. That's what that means for here. Wildlife health and human health. Now we are getting problems like avian influenza, like harmful algal blooms that are zoonotic. It no longer is just about the bearded seal or a fish stock being hurt. It's about human beings in peril as well. And so I just wanted to make that clear. And then for community engagement, I would say if you come to a regional hub or you come to any community, ask yourself 2 questions. 1, what is the objective of your community engagement? Is it education, conflict mitigation, data collection? And 2, what does success look like to you? If you can answer those 2 as you come into a region, that would be super duper helpful for everybody that's going to try to help you or at least be asking you questions. With that, I have only a couple updates. Tonight is Straight Science, and I'll put these all in the chat. We have Ebet Seiden giving the NOAA ecosystem report for the Northern Bering Sea tonight on Straight Science. We have Jim Murphy coming up on the 12th if you want to hear more about the surface trawl survey. And we have the Western Alaska Interdisciplinary Science Conference. This is a roving rural Western Alaskan conference coming to Nome 2 to 4 April 2024. And there'll be more about that. I'll put it in the chat. Thank you so much. Hope that's it.
Well done. Stellar presentation, Gay. And I hope we get a chance to circle back on some of these issues because you raised a lot of really critical issues for the region.
All right,
so
thank
thank you. With that, I'd like to turn back to the Northern Bering Sea Ecosystem and Surface Trawl Survey with Jim Murphy. Jim, please take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and good morning to everyone. I'm just going to briefly cover a few highlights from the Northern Bering Sea Ecosystem and Surface Trawl Surveys. So I'm Jim Murphy. I work at the Alaska Fisheries Science Center. I work as a research fisheries biologist in the Alaska Fisheries Science Center here in Juneau, Alaska. And I lead the ecosystem surveys in the Northern Bering Sea that's conducted by NOAA Fisheries. So I kind of listed a couple of themes, and there's a lot of different ways to characterize the research as part of this survey. But one of the key things that we look at on the survey is the status of particularly the juvenile life history stages of fish and crab. We conduct physical and biological oceanographic measurements to establish the habitat characteristics in the Northern Bering Sea. We've had a fairly significant component on looking at the trophic ecology, connections to predator-prey dynamics and competition and overlap, and just overall health and condition of the fish up there. And then we've also had U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service partner with us to provide information on seabirds. We'll go to the next slide. So I'm just doing this as a text instead of figures, but maybe this will help get me through quickly. So one thing we saw is that we saw temperatures returned, at least sea surface temperatures returned back to long-term average. And that's good. We're hoping that this will help bring some of the concerning ecosystem metrics that we've seen in the Northern Bering Sea that have arisen with the warming temperature. So for salmon, we continue to see Chinook salmon at historically low levels at their juvenile abundance stage. So that doesn't really bode well for harvest opportunities for at least the next 3 or 4 years. We did see an improvement for chum salmon, although a minor improvement. We're also seeing an improvement in the health and the condition of chum salmon. So that's possibly something that would improve harvest opportunities for chum salmon in the future. Similarly, we're seeing some improvement of forage fish like herring and capelin. One of the things that we saw this year that I think was really interesting is that we identified the presence of ichthyophonus in age 1 pollock. And so this is important because it's possibly the primary vector for how Chinook salmon are infected with ichthyophonus. So it's still kind of preliminary stages, but we're going to continue to investigate how Chinook salmon in particular are contracting this disease and in the Bering Sea. The other thing that was really interesting, we're seeing high levels of thiominase. This is an enzyme that breaks down thiamine, and this is saw high levels in rainbow smelt, and so we've noticed that there's low egg thiamine levels in Chinook salmon, which can lead to a lot of negative things occurring during the embryonic stage of Chinook. So this might be, we're still investigating that, but this at rainbow smelt may be a factor in their vitamin levels. So next slide. So some of the challenges, we did run into some challenges trying to ship frozen specimens out of Nome, and many thanks to Jen Bell in Nome for her assistance and logistics, and she fixed everything. She got everything in a freezer and handled that very well. So let's see. The other thing, we've had a number of objectives studying snow crab. One of the problems we had was we didn't catch any juvenile snow crab on the survey. So next slide. So data sharing, we do all of our specimens that are collected on the survey are through sample request forms, and anybody that is requesting data or samples from the survey, they can request it. Just contact me, and we'll do what we can. All the data that's collected on the survey from externally funded sources are available at the project completion, but our core data is made publicly available within about 1 or 2 months after the survey. And I think in particular, as we start to look at the Northern Bering Sea IERP, we would like to encourage, collaboration and collection and joint research on this new initiative with the North Pacific Research Board. So that's all I have.
Well done, Jim. Thank you so much, and really interesting to juxtapose Gay's comments with your presentation, as well as Zach and Nicole's. So I'm very happy to see some time to discuss a little bit later. With that, I will turn to Sarah Yoder, who will be providing some similarly verbal remarks. Sarah is from the Local Environmental Observer, or the LEO network. Sarah, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks. So on the agenda was Rebecca Arnold. She's with Alaska Pacific University. And APU is part of a partnership with Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, which is where I work. And we house the LEO network in the Center for Climate and Health. So I will talk a little bit about LEO. I think a lot of people on this call know what it's about, but I think it's important to put into context for the types of observations we get. So LEO is a platform online for people in communities to put in observations of unusual things they're seeing, in their general landscape. And also it's an opportunity for community members to be connected to subject matter experts if they have a question, if they're observing something a little unusual and need some feedback. So one thing that LEO can serve for the field folks on the call is an opportunity for people you can go into the LEO network and search the region where you're going to be working and see what types of observations and events have been posted to kind of get pulse of what people are thinking about. I think that can be helpful. Things that we've seen in the LEO network for the past season align really well with what Gay has said. which makes a lot of sense. We're interacting a lot with people on the ground. We had a lot of observations about weather, a lot of talks about wet summer, people having difficulties drying fish, getting out to areas because of flooding, different variable berry quality. We also had a lot of observations about fall and winter storms, significant snow in South Central Alaska, lots of rain in Southeast, and how those storms have impacted, people getting out and doing certain activities. As Gay said, there's also been a lot of observations about low salmon runs, particularly in the Northwest, and we're seeing more zoonotic disease things pop up than usual. A lot of our observations are driven by person's interest, so you can get some biased things come into the system, but it's good to hear that what we're seeing is aligning what others on this call are seeing as well. So for opportunities for collaboration and using data, I think Leo can be a nice way to help connect the hard data to what matters to a community. That's something difficult. Like, we all have to be aware of what everyone is doing out on research vessels, and then know how, if it's Leo or someone in a community, they have to know how to find that data, interpret it, and then make it make sense to some type of action. And so Leo can help with that, in that we can connect community members to consultants. You as a researcher would be a consultant. We also do host quarterly webinars where we invite subject matter experts to talk about an issue that is kind of a theme that we're seeing that quarter in Leo. Let's see. We are planning on having a user survey come out soon to kind of see how Leo can evolve to advance, what everyone's doing and just be more effective for everyone. So stay tuned for that if you're involved in Leo. If you're not involved in Leo but are curious, just Google leonetwork.org and you can sign up for an account. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks also for maybe giving us an extra minute for discussion. I think we've had a lot of really great presentations, and I thank all the presenters for this. And we see clearly an environment under stress, with multiple stressors, low runs of fish, trouble with weather making it difficult to dry the fish that were actually even harvested, and then even reports on emerging illnesses in fish populations at the very base. So I'd love to open the floor for a few minutes of questions, if folks are willing to either put their questions in the chat or just raise their hand and ask away. Thanks. And if you're feeling bashful, we're trying to promote an open community here, and share as much as we possibly can. But I'm happy to read any questions that folks might have, or any comments that folks might have. And I recognize that they obviously were coming fast and furious. And Renee, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, let's take a minute, and I have a question for Nicole. If I understood right, you deliberately did an abbreviated survey in the Northern Bering. Did I understand that right? And I just wondered if you could explain that.
Yes, this year, one of the slides that I skipped was sort of challenges and successes, and there was an abbreviated survey in the Northern Bering Sea this year due to various illnesses that were experienced on board the vessels. So some of these included COVID, but there are also other medical things that happen on board these surveys. And so,
okay, so it wasn't a scientific reason or a focus in a different area or anything like that.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, we have a question in the chat for the trawl surveys. Did any of the trawl surveys find snow crab this year?
From my memory, and speaking as only someone who specializes in the groundfish group and not shellfish. So I want to put that caveat out there. Yes, and particularly when we were in colder waters. So when I had one of the temperature maps, you could see sort of extensive, extensive blue area where the bottom temperatures were very cold, and we found several small snow crab in those areas. To the point where the catch was almost exclusively baby snow crab too. So it was pretty cool. It was great to see. And that's just from my personal observations out there as well.
That's great. Thank you very much. Gay, would you like to ask a question or make a comment?
No question. I just want to call out NOAA Race Division and thank them as they do an effort for trying to get their reports here and written physically, emailed, and their community highlight reports. And also they do come and talk to either virtually or in person. They do region-wide outreach efforts. So thank you, NOAA Race Division. Rock on.
That's good to hear. I noted that in the presentation, and it's good to hear from you, Gay, that that's really working for people.
Kudos are always welcome. Everyone is working hard under complicated circumstances and complicated environments. So it's always nice to see that the work is appreciated. Thank you. I wonder whether anyone has any comments on the health of the cold pool. I was very curious about, I think Nicole's presentation, particularly the evolving graph showing some of those bottom temperature measurements, and how that and the implications of the health of that cold pool.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, David?
Just, I wonder whether you have any insights on the health of the cold pool as a result of some of the bottom temperature measurements that you were taking on some of the surveys. Maybe particularly yeah, go ahead.
I believe if I remember correctly from previous maps of the cold pool, I believe this was sort of a standard on par cold pool. There are previous years where the cold pool was sort of very limited and kind of all up in the northern Bering Sea, but there's quite a bit of an extension down into the eastern Bering Sea this year. So it was pretty standard in terms of the other cold pool areas that reach down into the eastern Bering Sea. So it was noticeable this year where it was just pretty extensive.
Well, it's nice to see something maybe approaching back to average. I guess at this point, and I think Heather's noted this in the chat to me, or maybe to the group. It looks like Phyllis's presentation will touch on this as well, and perhaps Seth's as well. So I'll give back the 5 seconds to the next set of presentations, and we will go from there. I'm not entirely sure who I'm turning to now, but
thanks, Seth. You're turning it over to me. I'll grab the reins for now, and we'll get started with the next set of speakers. That's starting with Lisa Sheffield-Guy. Lisa, you can take it away.
Sure. I think on the agenda, though, we haven't done round 2 talks yet, and I'm the first talk for round 3. Did we?
Oh, did I skip ahead? Oh,
yeah, I think Phyllis is next.
We switched due to a time conflict.
Oh, okay. No problem.
Okay. Thank you, Katie.
Okay.
So, yeah. So the next group will be Lisa, Arinia, Lloyd, and Karen. So we'll start with Lisa if you're okay to go.
Sure.
Okay.
And do you share my slides for me or do? Yeah. Okay. I'll wait for slides.
I believe we can, if that's helpful. Sarah, I don't know. There you go. Sarah's going for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And sorry, I didn't know I was next. So I'm on my desk treadmill at a few miles an hour. So I'm a bit out of breath. So excuse that.
We can't even tell. You seem just absolutely normal. And
okay.
If you would like me to just switch you to the end of this group.
Oh, no, I'm totally
you could
fine.
jump.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Go for it.
Thanks, David, for inviting me to talk about Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this program, but it is a partnership between the Arctic Research Consortium of the US, the Eskimo Walrus Commission at Kowarek, the National Weather Service, and other partners with UAF IARC and the Alaska Ocean Observing System, and also now SIKU, which is an app developed by the Arctic Eider Society. And we are funded by the National Science Foundation. This program began in 2010, and we have community observers in 7 Bering Strait communities focused on observations of weather, sea ice, and walrus during the spring sea ice season. You can go ahead and skip to the next slide. Gay did a really good job of talking about the most recent conditions in the Bering Strait area. The Sea Ice for Walrus outlook season, as I said, just runs during spring. In 2023, we were from March 31st to June 23rd when the ice went out. And we typically start in March. This year, walrus hunting started as early as February with animals moving through the area. So we've learned we need to be a bit more flexible with that start date as water opens up sooner than it has in the past. And from our observers and National Weather Service partners, we saw that early spring sea ice conditions were similar to the previous year after a relatively warm winter. Ice was slow to form. Walrus harvest was better than it's been in the past few years. And we had open water for most Saiwo communities by mid-June, and that's when our season ends. One thing I want to share is that if you haven't been to our webpage, the link is there, and I can also drop it in the chat at arcus.org/Saiwo. Our entire archive of observations from 2010 on is there and available. So it has a lot of photos, descriptions from observers and communities, and it's a really nice resource. So even if you're heading up on a cruise or you're just looking at past data or trying to look at satellite imagery and see what's actually happening on the ground, it can be a really nice resource. And then if you're brave enough to still be on Facebook, we do have an active Facebook page. It's pretty active all year round, not just during the season, but it's just at Sea Ice for Walrus. And there, all of the local observations and photos are shared, but there's more of a conversation in the comments section. So if you do go to our webpage and see interesting photos from an observer in Diomede and you want to know more, you can actually interact with that observer directly on our Facebook page. Okay, and next slide. And I just put a couple of examples from each month of the spring on here. I'm not going to read them to you. I just wanted to kind of give an idea of what our observations are like from local observers. They are really rich and full of information and photos. You can go ahead and jump to the next one. And these will just be available to whomever would like to see them. And then let's see that challenges and successes. One of the challenges I heard from 2 observers, one on Diomede and one in Savonga, is that ice cellars, which are basically the freezers out in rural communities and are critical for food security. It's where all of the meat is stored. And these hand dug deep into the permafrost ice cellars, they're thawing and flooding. And so that is a really big issue as meat floods and thaws, it gets spoiled and is prone to contamination. So this is a photo. It's a little bit hard to see on the right, but that's a flooded ice cellar in Diomede this last season. And then a couple of successes. We had our first in-person meeting of the Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook observers and partners in Nome in March. The timing of this was great because we also just completed a formal evaluation of the program after being in operation for 13 years. So we got to review all of the recommendations from this evaluation that was funded by Alaska Sea Grant together as a group. And then the observers got to prioritize which of the recommendations for the program we'd like to implement first. And I just dropped a couple of links to those documents. They are also available on our webpage. The last thing I would add is that I will be at Alaska Marine Science Symposium with one of our observers from Savonga, Akafwai, and an observer from Brevig Mission, Marcus Barr. And so we will be there if anyone is also there and just wants to talk more about the program or potential collaborations. And then there's a bit on the collaboration slide next, I think, too.
Thanks, Lisa. We have to cut you off.
Okay, no problem.
You can flip, make sure we got I've shown all of our slides. Great. So we'll turn it over to the next speaker, Irina Churkanova and William Beatty will be speaking on the Pacific Walrus Research Cruise.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Irina Churkanova. I'm a contracting wildlife biologist with Fish and Wildlife Service, Marine Mammals Management. And the project I'm presenting is a collaboration with U.S. Geological Survey. And my co-author here, Bill Beatty, is also on this call, and he's co-lead on this project from USGS. So in June 2023, we carried out the first cruise of the second generation of Pacific Walrus genetic marker recapture cruises. And the first series of cruises took place in 2013, 2017. And now we're doing this all over again with some advancements in methods. So we departed from and returned to Nome and spent 27 days sampling walruses in the Northern Bering and Chukchi Seas. And we were working on board of Norseman 2. And you can see the map of our route. The primary goal of our project is to estimate the current abundance and demographic parameters and trends of Pacific walrus using genetic methods. And in order to accomplish this goal, we are planning to carry out at least 2 more of these cruises. Next slide, please. So this June, we encountered pretty heavy ice in the Bering Strait region, and it took us almost a week to get up to the Chukchi through the Bering Strait. And during the cruise, we used 3 small inflatable boats to collect biopsy samples from walruses hauled out on ice. And we also collected age structure data from those animals. Additionally, we collected walrus species, and in collaboration with NOAA Fisheries, we collected benthos and water samples to assess harmful algal toxins in those. Analysis of the samples is ongoing, so stay tuned for the results. Next slide, please. Okay, so as for the challenges and successes, we put quite a bit of effort into community outreach prior, during, and after the cruise. And this was definitely challenging, but rewarding. In collaboration with Eskimo Walrus Commission, we invited 3 Alaskan Native hunters who participated in our project as full research cruise participants. We also presented our project plans at Strait Science webinar, Alaska Marine Research Planning Workshop, and at the Hunters meeting at St. Lawrence Island. We notified coastal communities via email prior to the cruise and whenever the Norseman was within 50 nautical miles from the villages. And we also provided them with radio channels for communication. Another definitely highlight and a lesson learned from this cruise was an attack by a very annoyed female walrus who pierced one of our boat's pontoons with its tusks. And that left us with 2 boats and a ton of work to patch the boat up. So just a reminder to ourselves and everyone who's working with the animals and around the animals, always keep an eye out and be extra alert to your surroundings at all times. And next slide. And last but not least, we are interested in collaborations, mostly to offset the costs of the future cruises and also to contribute to other studies and projects. And we do have some limited capabilities to collect data for other teams. We are happy to discuss some additional equipment or other avenues to collaborate. And also just to note that our project, in our project, we are committed to upholding the fair and care principles. We are trying to ensure that our data is accessible and discoverable following the DOI policy. We're also very value native hunters' participation and contribution to our project. And we are continuously sharing our progress with the native communities. And we also prioritize ethical considerations throughout the research process by considering both the well-being of the walrus population and the indigenous communities. And with that, I'm thanking you for your attention, and feel free to contact us via email and see most of you at AMSS. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, there's some construction in my house, but I did want to, before we go on, I do believe Lloyd is the next in line for speaking, and I think Lloyd has slides. Does it make sense?
I didn't prepare any slides.
Okay, but you do have, okay, good. Well, I
Yeah,
want to go to Lloyd next in the speaker order, then we'll go to Karen. And so take it away, Lloyd. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, hello, good morning. Thanks for having me. I apologize about my broken glasses. I bought a new set yesterday. They should be done this afternoon. Yeah, so 2023 was a pretty fun year for UIC Science. We supported 2 vessel operations, like in person. First was the Emily Adam Chief Scientist Training Cruise. I was a part of that. I sailed as a community observer. And then like a day later, my coworker Thomas took over and he went on a 45-day cruise as a community observer. Kudos to him for being at sea that long during a very fun and important time of the year for us up here. I know he missed out on a lot, but from what I heard, he did a great job. We have another cruise lined up for 2024 with Dr. Bob Picard and his big cruise through Canada. That's going to be a lot of fun. Some backstory, we're supposed to kind of sail through the same area on my first cruise back in 2022, but due to ice conditions, we couldn't make it that far into the Mackenzie River Delta. So looking forward to some see if we can do it on this cruise. It'll be a summer cruise, so hopefully ice conditions work out for us. I can't think of many like big challenges other than like both Thomas and I got very seasick. Those are challenges for sure. Yeah, I did receive one reply from a community member in Little Diomede when I sailed. Unfortunately, it was the last day I was on board, so I had to forward that question to Thomas and Bob and Kevin Arrigo. But yeah, that's kind of what I came with. Short and sweet. I could have put pictures on a slide, but I'm sure you guys have all seen the cruise photos at this point. So,
well, Lloyd, I encourage you next time. You're welcome to put up some slides with the beautiful pictures that you take on the cruises. I really appreciate when you add those to your communications. I think that really helps convey the message and the excitement of being out there with the research cruises. So, thank you, Lloyd.
Yeah, I get to live through my little deadliest catch moments when I'm at sea. So
yeah. Thank you, Lloyd. And then was there anything else, Lloyd? I don't want to cut you off.
No, I just wanted to provide a little update for our shipboard support for 2023 and what's coming down the pipeline.
Thank you. And we appreciate what you and Thomas brought to the programs that all of our agencies support on the vessels. I'm going to turn it over to Karen to give her presentation, and then we'll have 5 minutes and people can also ask questions of any of the speakers for this session. So Karen will speak to biophysical drivers of bowhead whales.
Bowhead whale distribution.
Thank you. The title was cut off on that slide. It sounded strange. Thank you.
Okay, this is a kind of a quick report on the 3rd field year of a 4 field year program that started in 2011. My colleagues are listed on the top here. This program is funded by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and our goal is to better understand the factors governing bowhead whale prey availability on the Beaufort Shelf. This year we did boat-based sampling from August 12th to September 6th on the research vessel Ukpik. And you can see the ship track in that little inset figure. We worked in 3 main locations: a transect near Prudhoe Bay, I'm sorry that the graphic got messed up, but anyway, a shelf break depression we call a little whip-de-doo in the Beaufort Shelf, and then near Point Barrow. And we also we sample from the boat for hydrography and plankton and marine mammal distributions. And we also have a mooring program where we had moorings, year-round moorings deployed with CTDs, ADCPs, acoustic zooplankton fish profilers, and hydrophones. And we had a short-term mooring as well on the Beaufort Shelf. And this was done, deployed and recovered in collaboration with the North Slope Bar Department of Wildlife Management. That was a great partnership. Next slide, please. So the thing that we found that was the most interesting this year was that there was an awful lot of warm and very fresh, less than 30 salinity water in the Alaska coastal current. And so this shows a transect across the Barrow Canyon from Point Barrow across towards Hannah Shoal. It's similar to the DBO line that everyone's familiar with, but it's a little bit further downstream towards the mouth of the canyon. And we've run this line every year for this was the 14th year that we ran this line during the third week in August. And so this year we found that there was this very much warmer, but a lot of really fresh water that was characterized according to the Gong and Pickard TS scheme as late season meltwater. And it goes down to 50 meters. You could see that in the salinity where the yellow on the right-hand side of the plot goes all the way down to 50 meters. So we thought this was pretty remarkable. We'd never seen this before in our 14 years of sampling. And I'm looking forward to talking to my colleagues at the Alaska Marine Science Symposium and seeing what other people are seeing this year. But it does seem like this was very different. Next slide, please. Challenges this year, as usual, windy conditions limited when we could sample. This is a normal challenge. Also this year, for the third year in a row, a persistent band of sea ice on the shelf near Prudhoe Bay limited our ability to sample along that line. All 3 years, we got out to the end, we were able to do our mooring work, and then coming back in, we were limited for where we could sample and usually had to stop sampling before we got all the way into the shore. We also saw sea ice in Barrow Canyon when we sampled, but we were able to conduct all of our planned work regardless, and then a big blow came up and blew it away. And we saw hundreds of walrus when we were working in Barrow Canyon when there was that sea ice. And then finally, the loss of our lead PI, Steve Okenen, was very difficult for us to overcome. But we are very happy that he seems to have taught us very well. And so we were able to do the work anyway. Next slide, please. And for community outreach, I've been doing my normal community outreach. I've been presenting information to the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission before and after the cruise. I also talked to the Barrow Whaling Captains Association and then the local people in Barrow, and we work in collaboration with UIC Science when we're in Barrow. I have a poster at the Alaska Marine Science Symposium this year, and I plan, of course, to continue my communication with the AEWC and the Barrow Whaling Captains regarding our upcoming 2024 field plans. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that presentation, Karen, and all of the speakers in this group. We have a couple minutes for a question and answer before we go to the next set of talks. And there is hopefully some time for discussion at the end. So go ahead and raise your hand. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Hi, I just wanted to say a couple of things. Number one was associated with Lloyd's presentation. Lloyd was very understated, as he always is, and I just wanted to say what a tremendous contribution that he and his colleagues make when they sail with us. Not only communicating with the communities ashore, but also helping us with our science, including things like marine mammal observations. So it's just really tremendous contribution. The other thing, I have a couple quick questions for Karen. Karen, the ship that you were on, did you have a towed ADCP by any chance? And the second question is, I know you have a really valuable section that you're doing. You said 14 years now in Barrow Canyon, but there's another really very valuable section called the DBO5, which of course you know. Were you able to do that this year?
So for the ADCP, unfortunately, we didn't use an ADCP this year because we're towing an echo sounder to look for backscatter from krill and copepods across the canyon because the whale prey. So sorry, not this year. And for the second question, yeah, I know about the DBO line, but because we started before the DBO started, we have to sample line 2 first. And we always have DBO on our menu and we want to do it, but we can't do it every year because of the weather conditions. So if we can do it, we will do it. But if we can't do it, well, our record's longer than the DBO, so I can't sacrifice my line in order to get the DBO. So sorry about that, but it is really, I know it's really important, and I really want to contribute to that program, but the weather just didn't, it seems like the weather's gotten worse since 2005 when I started working up there. So I just couldn't get it in this year.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Bob, for the question and observation of Lloyd's contributions. Go ahead, Dave.
Karen, I know you're giving a presentation at AMSS, and I'm looking forward to that, but I wondered whether you had any insights that you could share now publicly about the origin of the 50-meter deep low salinity water. Just curious for the group.
I don't, but this is what I want to talk about with Seth and Bob and any of the other people who were up there sampling, so that we can all put our heads together and think about it. It definitely came from the south.
Attraction.
It was in the ACC, so Alaska Coastal Current. So it came from the south, but I don't know where exactly it originated.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah for the next group of speakers.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So we're on our last set of speakers, and if you are not speaking next, so if you're not Seth, I encourage people to stand up, to stretch, and to just take a deep breath and enjoy the science. So Seth, I welcome you to take it over.
Okay, thanks, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for allowing us to present here. I'm here on behalf of a set of projects that all sailed on Sikuliaq in September of this year. 4 projects: the Distributed Biological Observatory, the Eco-Foci Group, Ecosystems and Fisheries Oceanography Coordinated Investigations, the Arctic Marine Biodiversity Observation Work at Network, AMBON, and the Chukchi Ecosystem Observatory, the CEO project. In one way or the other, we're all out there to try to assess ecosystem status, biodiversity, and or change at time series stations. We were deploying and recovering a number of oceanographic moorings that stay out there year round, in part to answer the question, what conditions cause marine mammal populations in this region to vary. The map of stations that we occupied is shown in the lower right-hand side there. Let's go on to the next slide, please. So we had the Sikuliaq filled up with many different scientists that were collecting a wide variety of different measurements. There are too many to go through individually. I also wanted to highlight the freshness of the surface seawater, low salinity water, particularly found offshore, not only in the Northeast Chukchi Sea, but also say southwest of Point Hope and in the Bering Strait region. We had real-time sampling of harmful algal bloom constituents and weekly summaries that were transmitted to the local communities. This imaging flow Cytobot instrument was on Sikuliaq for a number of cruises this summer, including ours. There were actually 2 of these IFCB instruments operating on ours, one that was sampling continuously through the near surface underway system, and another one that was used for processing samples that were collected from the CTD instrument taken at depth. So we had both laterally near surface and vertically through the water column. One interesting note was that in the Northeast Chukchi Sea, we were there until about the mid-20s of September, and we saw very, very few whales in the Northeast Chukchi Sea. The migration really had not started at that point before we left. And we saw a fairly large pod of gray whales, something like 60 in the Chirikov Basin in the northern Bering Sea. Next slide. Many samples were taken for analysis in labs on shore and later on, so stay tuned for additional reports on all of these. Here's a photograph of 2 cruise participants taking samples off of a moored sediment trap and capping those up for analyses in the labs later on. Next slide. Challenges. One of our instruments in the moorings actually died. It smoked shortly after we left Dutch Harbor, and we were unable to load a replacement part in Nome, and weather prevented us from getting one in Utqiagvik, but the third time is a charm, and we managed to get it on board in Kotzebue right near the end of the cruise, and just the day before that instrument needed to be deployed. So that worked out very well, and we appreciate all the support from shore that we had in getting that part so that could be deployed. I would say that a success worth highlighting here is that we had so many research groups on board this one ship. One thing that we've heard from the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission in the past is that they would prefer to see fewer cruises, research cruises in the region to reduce disturbances, and by collaborating and bringing multiple groups on board one ship, we were able to reduce that. They were appreciative of this, and I think it was a great success to have this cruise operate in this fashion. We participate in nearly all of the AEWC meetings through the years. Both in before the cruise and after the cruise. We've reported back since our cruise in December. We had an email list that was sent out to hundreds of recipients every day from the ship. And then once we're back in Nome, I know you can't read this, but it says that we gave a straight science talk the day after the cruise and visited some local classrooms. So with that, it looks like I'm at my time. If you could skip to the last slide, please. Just like to acknowledge all the funding agencies. One more slide past this one. And support that we got from onshore to help the cruise be a great success. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Seth, and apologies about the slides. It might have been our transitioning over to Google Slides, so our apologies for not getting those corrected. So I'm the next speaker. So hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Tucker. I'm speaking on behalf of the UNOLS AICC Arctic Chief Scientist Training Cruise. The PIs on this cruise were Emily Adam and Lori Juranic. And the mission of this cruise was to train the next generation of chief scientists. So this was an application-based process. Early career scientists, postdocs, not undergrads, postdocs, grad students, and early in their career professors joined us, and we had a whole training session prior to getting on the cruise. We set up our sampling sites. As you can see, this is our route between Seward to Nome. We picked out what sort of sampling we would be doing based off of our different research interests and what where the stations we would be sampling at. We also had on the cruise, we had different sort of training sessions, and we also got to do science. So it was a mix of learning to be a chief scientist and also getting out there and doing some science. And so you can see here, we had a wide range of interests, and including physical oceanography, benthic, plankton, and microbial ecology, chemical oceanography, biogeochemistry, and paleooceanography. So a wide diversity of scientific ideas and missions here. For those who are not familiar, chief scientists are leading the research program at sea, and often also the ones who are leading the funding aspect of it. So they are coordinating across scientists with the captain and crew and maintaining a safe and healthy ship environment, as well as keeping the scientific mission on track. So We were out on this cruise on RV Sequoiac from June 6th through the 12th. And we had a number of successes. I think overall we met both of our scientific missions and our training missions. The pre-cruise workshop involved getting to know the Seward Marine Center, NSF Arctic Logistics, an introduction to UNOLS, and practical considerations for being a chief scientist. Really talking about interpersonal dynamics, because a lot of science is managing relationships. We also learned about the University of Hawaii data acquisition system. And so before we got on the cruise even, we had already a number of training opportunities. The cruise execution went quite well. We had good weather. We achieved most of the science that we wanted to, and we also got to act as chief scientists. So each day, some of the participants got to pair up with another scientist and serve as chief sci. So good hands-on experience. We got an introduction to different technical systems, including the CTD operations and controls, what it's like to do an ice station, winch systems, underway and meteorological systems, and MARSAM, which is the OSU Marine Rock and Sediment Sampling Group, as well as coring equipment. And in addition, we had the opportunity to interact with community observers. So Lloyd came on our cruise, and so you get to see a little bit of Lloyd's photography in this presentation. He is an amazing photographer and a really awesome person to be on a cruise with. And so we kind of learned from Lloyd how different strategies for engaging with communities, thinking about also environmental compliance, maintaining an environment of respect aboard ships, and we had a talk about geopolitical dynamics in the Arctic. So future considerations would be, would we want to take a different cruise path? Would we want it to be longer, a more northerly route, so we can actually do some ice stations? And there's a lot of opportunity for collaborations. We're all early career scientists, and I think we are interested in continuing to build our networks. So here are some of the analyses that are going on, and a nice quote from one of the participants. And so I'm just going to wrap up and say that there are many interests of this group. Some include, chlorophyll analyses and looking at some of the salinity dynamics going on. And we just have a lot of people to thank for supporting us in our training and our future as early career scientists. Thank you. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to our next speaker. Phyllis, are you on? Oh, I see you. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so Phyllis, please fill us in about the spring and fall mooring cruises.
Okay, so my name is Phyllis Stabenow, and I'm the PMEL lead of the EcoFoci program. And I'd like to talk about two cruises. Every year we have two cruises on the Dyson, a spring mooring cruise and a fall mooring cruise. And so I'd like to talk about, next slide. So the spring mooring cruise this year was on the Dyson. It's began in, I think it was April 26th, and it ended on the 10th or 11th. For the first time in a decade, when we arrived at M2, which is our long-term mooring on the Southern Bering Sea, there was ice there. The interesting part about it is the ice was just up to kind of that 70-meter isobath. It didn't extend beyond that. Our suspicion of why that was really limited, even though the winds were favorable, is that the Southern Bering Sea is very warm now. Even in the spring, temperatures were at 4 degrees, and that tends to melt the ice. But anyway, the ice just was a little bit shoreward of M2. M2 is our long-term mooring. We deployed it in the fall for the 30th year. So anyway, we went to recover it, and we did, and then we deployed the summer surface mooring. The interesting part is even at M2, the temperatures did not get below 1.4. Even with ice nearby. So they stayed pretty warm. The shape of the ice was fairly interesting. Like I said, it was mainly confined along the coastal domain. We've seen that now for a couple of years. And so there's some real question is there enough heat coming through the Gulf of Alaska that it's affecting the maximum ice extent? And we're beginning to take a look at that. In addition, the ice was kind of interesting in that we could go right up to it. It was pretty stationary early on, and we did a number of transects, both CTDs, water properties, and zooplankton. And then the ice began to retreat a little bit, and so we sampled underneath that. And so the zooplankton, the bongos primarily, were collected. They've gone off to Poland to be analyzed, but we do have some results from the rapid zooplankton assessment. And the amount of zooplankton were similar to the colder years. This is some work by David Kimmel. As we went north, we then went as far north as we could with the ice. We saw more cold water zooplankton come in, and we'll have a better idea when the samples come back. We also deployed 3 moorings in Kuskokwim. We're on an MPRB project, and we're trying to analyze or understand when halibut and other species come onto the coastal domain, and see how closely it's related to temperature and see what we need to measure to be able to predict that. Next slide. Usually we have a Dyson cruise in September, early October, to do the fall mooring cruises and the ecosystem. Unfortunately, the Dyson was out of commission in September, so we chartered a vessel, the Aquila, in August. Our first major problem, so our major problem was that the M2 surface moorings release failed. We tried to drag it in, but we couldn't. It was just too heavy. We had hopes to recover it on the Sekuliak, and the Sekuliak also couldn't recover it because they had engine problems and other problems. We're planning to recover it from the Resolve Pioneer in early February. One of the interesting parts this year is that the Chukchi did not become solid until the middle of December. Then there was a fairly rapid advance of sea ice onto the Bering Sea shelf. Once again, it didn't get anywhere near M2, but the temperatures at M2 are still above 4 degrees. So the southern Bering Sea is pretty warm for this time of year. So we have data from early January, and it's 4 degrees basically. So that's kind of interesting. And we know that because M2 is sitting out there. We have to get it before the ice comes down. So that's one of the big priorities we have. And so we also recovered the moorings near Kuskokwim. Next slide. So basically, we collected wide ranges from CO2 to nutrients, eDNA, the whole thing. These are ecosystem cruises. That data is available. You can see where the data will be deposited. If you want to collaborate or are interested, you can contact me or any of the people listed here. That's about it. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a few minutes for questions for Seth, myself. There's also a few members of the early career Chief Scientist Training Crew is on the line here, and for Phyllis. Does anybody want to offer a question? Oh, I see David. I think this is a question from Gay. Is that correct? Okay. Phyllis, do you have any idea, is there a calculation to look at duration, extent, and quality of sea ice it takes to make a robust cold pool? And it sounds like we just lost about 100 miles of ice as it was driven north in our latest weather event.
Yeah. So Wei Chang and I are doing a paper right now, and we're looking at a combination of observations and the model results. And what we're seeing that is if the ocean temperature, this is from the model, so yeah, take it. It's the ROMS model is pretty good. It predicts ice extent fairly well, etc. But if you warm the water on the southern Bering Sea by a degree, you reduce ice extent, southern ice extent, by 50 to 100 kilometers. The southern Bering Sea is the edge of the ice. And if you can delay it coming south, you then delay maximum ice extent. The second thing it looks like is the ice is now thinner. So that means when the winds turn around and blow the ice northward, it crunches it. It used to be if the ice is thick enough, it crunches together and you don't push it this way. But right now it looks like the ice is thinner than it's been historically. And so when the winds turn, for instance, like I say, and I think it was the 20th or 22nd of December, there's a pretty good ice advance. And then early January, the winds turned around and it went north, and it's now much reduced. The interesting part is the temperatures at M2 returned to 4 degrees. They cooled for a little bit, but they're back to being 4 degrees. These are surface temperatures. So yeah, the southern ice, the northern ice is largely unperturbed. It might be delayed a bit with warmer stuff, but it's cold up there. There's no sunlight and there's land up there and you're blowing cold winds off the land. So if you have the appropriate forcing, it's going to remain pretty cold. But the south is a little bit iffy right now, depending on what the ocean temperatures are. And that water comes from the Gulf of Alaska, and the Gulf of Alaska is warmer. So anyway, that paper is underway. Hopefully we'll submit it soon.
Gay, do you want to follow up on that?
Yeah. Hi, Phyllis. Thanks for doing that. I was thinking more like, well, if you have ice that remains at 2 feet for 3 months, somewhat stable, you'll have this much of a cold pool. So maybe I didn't ask the right question, but I appreciate what you're doing, and know that it's for us, this last event, and what we're getting more and more is we had some really cranking southerly winds. We are getting measurable rain, and it's mid-January. And so it is, those kind of events are bringing us these incredibly warm air masses that are quite large. And, to push back the ice in 5 days by 100 miles is impressive, because that means, okay, we got to recover that. And it's already in 6 weeks, it's going to be March 1, blah, blah, blah. And then we got everything rolling again. So anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
The interesting part is the warmth on the southern Bering Sea shelf right now. And I know
those lows.
Yeah. Well, the rest of the country is freezing, so it's right that you guys are warm.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. It looks like there's another question in the chat. Is there a collaboration with people looking into the Arctic Ocean? A collaboration that spans the Bering to the Arctic. I wonder if that's kind of the question. Yes. Okay. I'm sure there are a few people who could speak to that. Phyllis, do you want to start?
So, yeah, so we both maintain and do work in the Bering Sea which is the transition to the Arctic. We also do extensive work in the Chukchi. And so the two groups go together. The Bering Sea has northward advection. You can, and so it matters, the temperature, the nutrients, all kinds of things come out of the Bering. And the Chukchi has to freeze before before the Bering Sea can freeze big time. And so they're so interconnected that there's a lot of work. I think we all work together in looking at the two systems because they depend on each other so much. Seth?
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think that there are people online here like Karen Ashton led the Synoptic Arctic Survey cruise to the North Pole in 2022. Igor Polikov leads the NABOS program, and there's quite a bit of collaboration amongst the different scientific groups that are making these studies, writing papers together, etc.
Yep, and Bob Pickart, who's also on the call, and some others you also mentioned. Yeah.
I think the Chukchi Sikuliak cruise is a classic example of the integration of just about everybody who works in the high latitudes. In the Bering and Chukchi. Because ship time is always hard to come by, and so by default we all work together and share our data and share our efforts.
Okay, maybe one more question for this set of talks, and then we'll move to a group discussion. I should add we did have some talks that the speakers could not make this time. So we will include those slides in the slide deck that we put onto the event website. Okay. Then I will turn it over to Renee for the group discussion.
Great. This is an opportunity for us to, synthesize things or have our thoughts wander among all the different speaker sessions that we had. So you can reach back to other things, or I also would ask people to maybe share some things, insights that they think that they heard. Maybe nothing's confirmed just yet, but I feel like I heard a few things in terms of the, relationships between, salmon or walrus or things, kind of thinking across different talks. So I wonder if there are folks who have something, questions for the group or observations from hearing this whole string of talks that you might want to bring to the group's attention. So let's start with that. So I feel like I heard in terms of salmon, I guess one of the things I feel like I heard is that it was not a complete disaster out of the Bering Sea this year. I think we've had some years where, many things were not observed. The ocean temperatures were warm. And it kind of gave people a little bit of a spooky feeling about changes. And I think Typhoon Merbok had something to do with that last year. But anybody else have some things that they maybe picked up on as you listened to crosstalks? Karen or Bob, Seth, Jim, or other speakers? I think Daniela just put an interesting note in the chat as well, just to point out the international collaborations that also happen. Danielle, you can chime in if you want to add more to that. All right, I'll go to Gay and then Bob.
Yeah, thank you. I guess listening to me, my ear is always on the humanity all over the coast. And when we talk about salmon, when we talk about temperatures and ice changes, do know that your fellow citizenry is trying to do the best they can. All of us are trying to do the best we can. When there is comprehensive utilization of the marine environment for nutritional, cultural, and economic well-being up and down the coast. So please, please remember the humanity and that your fellow citizenry are all up and down the coast trying and getting your results into the existing communication networks is extremely useful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to echo that. And I think hearing the number of people who are giving straight science talks, agencies that are putting their data into the hands of communities and other co-management organizations and others in near real time. I think it's noted and it's observed that everyone's really making efforts, and there are more directions to go or more effort that can be put in. But I think these are really big strides in communication and coordination with communities that have really evolved over decades. So I want to acknowledge people's efforts and echo Gay's point when we're thinking about the system. And I know that I'm thinking about, people's ability to get food, the health of the system overall, including the people who live there. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Renee. So I was thankful that Danielle brought up the international participation, because that's really, obviously a critical part of all this. And along those lines, I was wondering about, this forum that we're having today is extremely valuable to, to see what happened, for a previous field year, and it inspires collaboration and all that. I was just wondering if people have thought about trying to get, foreign participation in this. Maybe that's just too unruly, but at least it's something to think about. On the other end, I think there is a potential for people who don't normally work up here year after year after year, or have these, long-term programs, people who have more like a one-off program. Are they aware of this forum? And there is a participant that I know of this past field season who doesn't work every year, and they were not aware of the forum. So maybe there's some more communication we can do to make sure it's more inclusive. And the last thing I just wanted to mention was, Renee, you talked about, this low salinity year, and what can we make of all this? And it was interesting to hear Karen talk, and then Seth talked about low salinity, not only in the ACC, but in other places. I just want to give another plug for the DBO program. What's nice about that is, it's got buy-in by everyone, including the international community, which means that if we have a year like we had in terms of this low salinity, we can much more easily put it in context with the longer term record. I mean, Karen, I'm not, criticizing you at all. I understand the worth of your line, but by having a DBO occupation, either DBO 3, DBO 5, then we can really easily put it in context. And we have many more occupations from all these institutions, every year. And so, yeah, we can look at 2023 and see, much more easily what kind of anomaly it was, and more importantly, why it happened. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. It's good to hear that you think that this is an important and useful forum. We will be talking about more and better ways to get more people to, come to this, hear all of this information that's unfolding in, very close to the field season, and in preparation for next field season as well. So thank you for those. And we can make more strides to invite international speakers. The time zone thing can become an issue, but appreciate that feedback to us, Bob. And let's go to Karen.
Oh, I just had a quick question for Bob. Has anyone, because I haven't, tried to figure out how different my line is from DBO?
Yeah, so I actually was thinking about that during your talk. And that's worth doing. You're not very far downstream, so
no,
yeah,
it's really close. It's just
understood. But the only thing I'll mention, Karen, is that having them at the exact same line means that we can put them all on an identical grid, right? And that makes the quantitative analyses so much easier than if you're trying to interpret something that's offset.
Oh, no, I get it. But Bob, do you want me to end my program just for the DBO? Come on. The best The best thing to happen would be if I could do both, and then I'll be very happy, because I do try to do the DBO line, whatever cruises I'm on, even the shelf break. We did the DBO a number of times. We did DBO 6 on the Sikuliak cruises, but
like I said, Karen,
we
I'm
could
not
try it.
trying to criticize you. You do a tremendous job, and you have a lot of DBO5 occupations that you've added into the database. So I fully appreciate, I'm sure the community does as well, the efforts that you're making to try to do that line.
So we should look at 2005 and 2006, where we dragged an acrobat across those two lines, like almost synoptically. And we could see how different they are.
That's
Sorry,
a good
guys.
idea.
An acrobat goes up and down and it has a CTD on it. So it's like we started by doing that, but then we went to Sentinel lines instead.
I think that's one of the reasons we want to have this conversation, to identify those things, not to make this more additive and collaborative and expansive, and figure out those ways that we can bridge between projects. Thank you for having that conversation. I want to, also focus some attention on communication from the field, coordination with communities, how those efforts went. I heard a lot of different kind of golden nuggets from the different presentations about efforts people have made to reach communities. We really appreciate the observers that we're able to have on board, who are communicating in real time from the vessel what's happening, with the opportunity for communities to feedback, as Lloyd mentioned, and say, hey, are you seeing this? Or thank you for the update, or hey, we've got people out in boats, or whatever the information is that's important to them as the cruise is happening. So did you learn anything from your community engagements? Do you feel like you had feedback or other good practices to share back through this group about working in the coastal regions with communities? I might pick on Sarah because she was on the training cruise. If there's anything else you want to share from that cruise, maybe how that cruise worked with communities or was teaching the potential future chief scientists about things like, not just your science and not just operating the team of people on the ship, but the bigger context of where you're working.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this was a big part of the conversation we had on board. So we talked, obviously Lloyd was on the ship. And I think for many people, that was the first time having a community observer on board, and just kind of learning that relationship and how to make it effective was really great. So Lloyd was reaching out, sending reports that we were providing daily about some of the scientific interests, and then including some of the things that he saw. And so we got to use that as a way to reach communities. We tried to do a outreach event on the ship, but the scheduling didn't work out at the end. So that was something that we were excited about, to do something while we were on board. And I think we talked a lot about how we enter communities and our responsibility to provide an update on our science immediately following, or not so long after. I had the opportunity to actually give a ship tour of the Sikuliak while we were docked in Nome, and I think that was also a really amazing opportunity to bring communities on board, community members on board. I know it can be limited. I know it can depend on the captain, but that was a really meaningful experience. And I think there are a lot of folks who have seen these research vessels come in and out of their communities many, many times, but never really knew what it looked like on the inside and what it was capable of. So that was a really meaningful experience, and something that, as we get a little bit further away from COVID, that might be another opportunity to consider. And finally, I'll just mention CSOP, which is talking about Sikuliak's kind of ideas of best practices on ship. And so there's a whole article written about that, and it's a good reference to have, especially for early career scientists to think about what sort of research environment they want to create.
Thank you, Sarah. Those are good highlights. Frank, I saw you turn your camera on. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I'd just add to that we're in the process of awarding another grant to conduct an early career research or chief scientist training cruise on Healy in 2024. So keep your eyes open for announcements related to that. It's should come online around February.
Thank you, Frank. And I think it's a great opportunity for people, and I really appreciate the co-PIs, Emily and Lori, for that effort, and also all of our PIs and chief scientists and mentors, people who are on this call who are helping develop the next generation of people to go out to sea. We want to keep building up our skill sets and retain this kind of stream of people who want to come and work in this marine environment. It made me wonder too, Sarah, about vessel, sort of the video walking tours of other research vessels, maybe also being of use to the research community and understand the capabilities and opportunities that are potentially available on some of the other vessels that are commonly used. Go ahead, Gay.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And Sarah did give a tour. I would say that probably the best thing is to work with regional entities when you pull into a place so that you can get, where to go get people and how it would work and the logistics. That would be where you're talking with regional entities at a place you're pulling into. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking sort of video, like a, outreach tool, maybe in-person tours, but also maybe just virtual tours to let people know what the vessels are capable of, both as outreach tools and as science platforms. Seth.
Sorry, before we move on, I just want to say Gay was really instrumental in being able to organize that ship tour. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, and I think, Gay's message resonates, about where you're working, understanding and reaching out ahead of time, and working through the networks that exist. And if you have questions, you can reach out. There's, start asking, and people will point you in the right direction for the region where you're planning to go. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, I just was noticing that there were a bunch of questions today about whether or not these presentations would be available on the website at a later date. And I wonder, in the spirit of getting more information out there, if the website also could be used for, say, archiving cruise reports from the various cruises that were talked about today. We're just wrapping up our edits on our cruise report. It's pushing 200 pages, and there's just so much more information in that thing than we were able to present here today. Obviously, seems like it could be maybe a useful venue for getting those materials out if people don't know where to look for them otherwise.
Seth, is that a cruise report that you post, to a UAF website, or is it on the Sekuliak, or is it on through UNOLS, or in terms of linking to it where it lives with other cruise reports?
It gets archived in various project folders. I don't know that there's an identified spot for them necessarily. Usually it's sort of on a project by project basis.
Yeah, and I think there's been some efforts maybe through UNOLS to come up with a more systematic way, or make things available. So we'll talk about that in our post meeting wrap up and see what we can do, and especially in terms of at least linking to where documents live.
Yeah, Heather notes that EcoFoci has a spot for them.
Yeah. Good. Go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, Jessica. Yeah, Jessica.
Thank you.
So I'm joining from Anchorage, and this was really great. I'm kind of joining for my position here, but I'm kind of seeing one big thing that's kind of lacking is a way for communities that are on the coast that are like impacted by living on the coast, eating the things, and there's no forum that I can think of where the community members can communicate with researchers and say, this is a priority for us. We are wondering about this. I know when I was in Chefornik, I'm originally from Chefornik, southwest coast, right on the Bering Sea. I did send in some, I think a dead seal or something. I think I sent it to Gay or somebody, and like it was just kind of weird. But it would be cool to kind of come up with this forum where local communities can say, hey, here's like my shopping list of research. And then early career researchers or people who are getting trained could be like, ooh, hey, community Chefornik, I would like to work on that question. And I'm just like trying to imagine that, and I can't. So I think that's going to be one of my projects that I think through, and I've spoken with other people that have the same thought, and I'm like, we should get together, but it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's I'm sure people on this call want to hear that, want to know. It's tricky to like just shore up the communication and get those questions of interest to people who can actually address them. There have been efforts to fund organizations to help with that. And, there have been various degrees of success. So, we keep working on that concept, and there are many people on this call who would be interested in working with you, and definitely the field operations community of practice is interested in working on that with you. Did David, did I see your hand up or someone else's?
I took it back down.
Okay.
It's not necessary for today. Thanks so much, Renee.
Okay. Did I miss any questions in the chat? And are we right on at our time when we have to bring this to a close? Okay. Thank you, all of our presenters, discussants, and we will be making materials available through the recording and on the website. We'll be hearing from us more about the pre-field season meeting for the field season in 2024. And we appreciate your participation. Sarah, Dave, what am I forgetting to say?
I think you're covering a lot of ground, Renee. We want to thank all the presenters for providing their observations and all the participants for their contributions during in the discussion today. As you heard in this discussion, we're trying to create and maintain a community of collaboration and communication. If you have feedback for how to improve it, like the intervention that just happened a moment ago, whether it's making it more welcoming, covering different topics, please contact us, any of us on the field operations community of practice. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to make always improve and make a better community. I'd also like to offer my sincere thanks to the field operations community of practice and all the collaborating partners, including the CIs and Marine Ecosystems community of practice and the IARPC Secretariat for continuing and stellar support and collaboration. And finally, I would like to thank Sarah Tucker for her excellent dedication and contributions to the field operations community of practice. As a Knaus Fellow this year, you rocked it, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without you, and really, really appreciate you in such ways that I probably can't articulate right now. Finally, I wanted to let you know that some of us from the field operations community of practice will be at the Alaska Marine Science Symposium. It's come up a bunch of times today. That's coming up in Anchorage in another few days. Please look for us at the poster session and other events. And I'd like to also highlight that we will kick off the 2024 season and the 2024 research matrix at the Alaska Marine Research Planning Night hosted by the Alaska Ocean Observing System. Shana put this in the chat. It's on January 31st from 6 to 9 p.m. in the quarterdeck at the Captain Cook. This is a public event. You don't need an invite, so please come and let's talk. Let's continue the conversation. Let's make this what the community wants and needs, and really look forward to your collaboration. And yeah, with that, I guess, unless there's anything else that I'm missing, Sarah, Katie, anyone else, and Shane, I saw that you came on video. Did you want to offer any other comments?
We were able to get sponsors, so there will be food and booze if you guys want to come Wednesday night.
All right, you heard it. You heard it first.
Thank you so much, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for everything you guys did and setting it
Thank
up.
you. Appreciate it, Phyllis. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Oyana, this was super great.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk.
Yeah.